if I knew everything then that I know now about what it goes into putting something together, I would have been like, this is insane. I'm going to go back and get my business degree or do something that a sane person would do. The odds are just not there. But don't believe that, young people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the opposite, actually. Forget all that. If you feel it, you go for it. This is Jim Parsons, and this is the timeline of my career. I got into acting through school. I was in a school district that did plays every year. I caught the bug, and then I did that, acting 1st grade through 12th grade. And then I thought, this is a really stupid career idea and way too risky, and I tried to give it up. And I took about a year off my first year in college, and I was around people who were actually in the theater and watching them just warm up for performances or learn monologues for auditions or whatever. I just knew how badly I missed it. And there was this kind of aha moment I had where I realized that if I didn't get back into it, I saw a really sad older man on my part who was angry. And so my fear of being a bitter old man is what led me into the college theater. And it was my boyfriend, actually, now husband, Todd, who was like, we need to go to LA. One thing led to another, and then I lived in LA for 12 years, and now I'm back in New York.
You familiar with Mount Precipice?
Actually, I haven't been up here in years.
Well, as you probably know, it's a volcano. But don't worry, it's not active. During the turn of the century, it was primarily used for bauxite mining. Now, of course, it's a state park. There have been weddings up here in the past. Not many, though.
Ed was a very small part where I was a park ranger or something, and the characters played by Julie Bowen and John Slattery were looking for a place to get married, and I was there to show them and discourage them. Not on purpose, though. It's something I bring to the party as an actor, as the person who unknowingly gives you bad information. Like, I don't know that what I'm saying is turning you off, but sure enough, I don't think they got married there. And I was really excited, and I remember watching it, and it was just neat. I don't know, it was really, one of the best things that happened was Julie and John, however, especially having been on a show for so long now, I realized how kind and inclusive they were to me when I was on the set that day. I spent a lot of time in Julie's trailer, which I just don't know that I would do that to somebody playing this one scene of a part in a show that I'm on every day, and I'm here and I'm doing my work, and I'd be pleasant and nice, but I don't know if I would invite them in, but she did. She was so nice. Or maybe if I met me on set, I'd invite me right in the trailer. I don't know. Spend all day with me.
You might want to bring up some sort of portable flooring if you're planning to dance or whatnot.
So, Tim, how long have you been working at Medieval Times?
3 years. But I've only been a knight for 2. You have to pay your dues. I worked in the stables and helped in the kitchen.
Garden State was really big for me in kind of a deceptive way. It was one of those movies that it got a lot of attention out in the world. It did very well, but my character wasn't necessarily big enough that it didn't make a huge impact for me in that way. What it did, though, was everywhere I went in Hollywood, they had seen it. Like, every casting office had seen it. Or if they hadn't, they had been hearing people talk about it. And so it was this first thing that was like a calling card. It was this first thing I had when I walked into a room going, I'm already here. I'm already part of the party, right? Which is really helpful, even just for your confidence, to feel like, oh, I work. Now you know. And it was just an excellent part, too. I loved playing that, and I loved Zach's sensibility, and I had grown up adoring Jean Smart, who I got to play the lover of. I'm really grateful that I wasn't thrust into a sex scene with Jean Smart, though, like my first movie out of the gate. I would have crumbled. That might have been too much. But you know what? I smoked back then, so maybe I was cooler and I could have handled it. I don't know.
I should get going.
some poor woman's gonna pin her hopes on my sperm. What if she winds up with a toddler who doesn't know if he should use an integral or a differential to solve for the area under a curve?
I'm sure she'll still love him.
I wouldn't.
The only thing I remember is that when I read it, I remember thinking, this is important. It's important that I always work on my auditions, but I don't know, I felt something special. And I remember the Oscars were gonna be on that night, and I was invited to like a party, and I said I'm not going, and I stayed home and wrote out my lines and worked on my lines. And then I went in and I auditioned, and I knew it had gone well. A few days later, they called me back to do the test for like the network and the studio or whatever. And I thought that had gone well. I knew it had gone well. I did what I wanted to do, and I could tell it had gone well. But normally, any other pilots I had been cast in, my phone had rang literally while I was walking to the car from the audition. Like, this was hours. It was hours. And my agent at the time, I remember calling, and he said, "What happened today?" And I said, "Oh God, what do you mean?" He goes, "I'm just kidding, you got it." It's like, so then I had the role, and then we started the show. It was interesting watching the writers do things like make Sheldon from Texas, which obviously was to fit in with me and the way I sounded. But at the same time, I never purposefully tried to mold that character, if that makes sense. I always felt from the moment of the audition up until the end of the run that I was at the service of the writers. That doesn't mean I was an angel to work with all the time or something, but I just, that was my take on it. But like I say, I know that I had an effect on him and him on me. I mean, I don't know any more about science, and I'm still not into graphic novels, and I don't watch Star Trek, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. I mean, God bless science and graphic novels and Star Trek, but it's just not my thing. But playing the role certainly changed my life and my career. I mean, really is the reason we're talking today. I mean, like, without that, so many other things don't happen.
We won the Nobel Prize!
Who am I? Oops. I am O. I has been given this name by my many, many friends.
Good morning.
Oh.
Hi, guys.
Home was not my first voiceover animation stint. I had done episodes of other animated television shows, like guest characters or whatever. But this was definitely the first and most intensive movie experience I had had. It was really amazing working on that because there's a playfulness about voiceover work. I mean, I would never get as sweaty as I get doing voiceover work, doing anything else. I mean, if I did, people wouldn't watch me. It'd be like, ugh, that looks like a lot of effort. And the voiceover is, oddly, for all the times you hear like, well, you can wear whatever you want, no makeup. Yeah, well, all that's true, but thank God, because for me at least, it is the most athletic, effortful. It's just some of the weird things they ask you to do. Like, they have what's called efforts. Like, you'll do 20 minutes of efforts. Like, we need you running through a forest. And by the time you've done that for a long, you jump over there's a hill. I was sweaty. I lost weight doing home. But it was unlike anything I've done before in the way of truly, without trying to, forming a character together with not only the writers, but especially the animators. And the combination of getting me recorded for something and then doing sketch drawings, which they would show me of what that face would look like on the creature mimicked to my voice, and then redoing certain things, or me getting information from what I saw, going, oh, I don't know if I want that to be that, and whatever. It was just really intensive. And it took a long time. I feel like it was 1.5 years or 2 years, like on and off. I'd come in and work for like 3 hours, and then I wouldn't be back for 3 weeks. And I'd come in and work for a few hours. And the only thing that, I won't say I don't like about it, but you're not with other actors. And that's a big part of what I do love about this career. We had some staged sessions for promo stuff, like where me and Rihanna and Steve Martin were all in the booth at the same time. But I don't imagine they used any of that. I mean, for one thing, I was dressed too nicely for that. I was like, I don't wear this to record. she's got a full face of makeup on. No, I don't know, but you know.
I am very excited to make a new fresh start.
Ellie, dinner's ready.
I don't care how dim-witted you are. Scientific principles have to make you smile. Of course, nobody I knew in East Texas in 1989 cared about Newtonian physics.
So, in the process of working a long time on a TV show, sometimes you get these beautiful perks like the studio, in my case Warner Brothers. When they renegotiate your contracts, you suddenly get the offer to have a production company. Or maybe we ask for it and they go, sure. It wasn't unheard of, is my point. And I remember my executive who runs my company, really with my husband, I'm really an in front of the camera cat, as it were. I don't really crawl much well and don't do well behind the head. Anyway, they run the company. And so Todd and I began talking about how much we would love to base a show around maybe my family, but specifically my nephew, who is so intelligent and just so charmingly different than everybody else, and he's just so goddamn smart. So we're starting to put together this show idea, and Todd and I were like, I mean, it sounds like a young Sheldon. And at one point we're like, you know what you have to do is, what I had to do was write Chuck Lorre and be like, here's a show idea that we had. It's sounding a lot like Sheldon. We are fine with steering away from that and making it its own thing, but as long as this has come up, do you have any interest in doing, which I hate to use this term, but I did at the time, I was like, spinoff. I don't like spinoffs usually. I think one of the few that worked was Lou Grant from Mary Tyler Moore, and they turned that into a drama. So I was like, I am not saying this is a good idea, but I want to run it by you. He wrote back and was like, this is very interesting. Let me talk to Steve Milaro, another executive producer who was such an important writer on the show. And they were like, I think we should do it. And it was so great to hear them talk about it suddenly through smart eyes with things like running shows, because they were like, we already have a treasure trove of backstories and things we've referred to that inform God knows how many stories for this young version. And that was the beginning of Young Sheldon. I was shocked when they said it would be a single camera. I thought, why not multi-camera? It could be a raging success. I could drop by every once in a while and say hi to the audience. No, nobody wanted that.
In that moment, I had an epiphany. I could draw up a contract for any social relationship.
He kept dancing around what had happened, talking about Jake's creative role play or whatever, and then suddenly I realized, oh God, this guy doesn't know how to tell me that my son was, he was the Little Mermaid, it turns out.
Jake came to us because the producing team, they're called Double Nickel, they had brought it to my attention as something that I might want to act in, that they might want to produce, etc., etc. But that never happened. But I read it and I never forgot it. And so once time had gone by, I wanted to revisit it. It was a play with only 3 characters. In the play, the child is not part of it, and obviously the world is not opened up, so there's no other people. It was just the 2 parents and his teacher/instructor at the school. And I thought, this seems like a manageable thing for us to take on as a company, to like get our feet wet with a movie. This seems like the right size to do it. I also really thought the way the father spoke and the way he dealt with things, the way other characters talked about him, I thought it was a decent fit for me, so I felt I wanted to play that part. And I just thought the whole thing was artfully done. Daniel Pearl, who wrote it, I thought he just did such an artful job. I just really liked the tone of the piece as much as anything. And I know that had some effect on me, like the social point, if you will, of this, but it wasn't the reason I wanted to do it. It was kind of an added bonus that it had. I mean, it helped with the tone. It gave it its weight, in my opinion. It gave it a gravity. I don't like to use the word important because I don't want to ever take something out to the world and go, this is important. You should, no. That's between you and your God. But it didn't seem frothy to me. It didn't seem You know, it seemed like worth the effort, and I knew that it was going to be a lot of effort, even, well, partially because of a smaller budget, but even with a smaller group of people, it's a lot of work to get these things off the ground, so you better really like it. And I did.
I mean, he does like to play dress up. That's not news. Not that I care, obviously, but he's not exactly Johnny Basketball.
Do you have any comments on the trial? Let me say this. This man is a threat to society. He has made a mockery of our justice system. That may have worked on the other side of the Rockies, but as lead prosecutor for the great state of Florida, I have every intention of showing him how we do things in the Sunshine State.
In all honesty, the biggest reason I wanted to do Extremely Wicked was because as soon as I heard that Zac Efron was playing Ted Bundy, I thought, yeah, I'm completely on board for that. I thought, not only do I think that works, but I think it's exactly the kind of thing that excites me, which is watching another actor, another artist, if you will, do something that is both out of left field and makes sense at the same time. And for me, him playing Ted Bundy, it hit that right on the head. It was just like, what? And as soon as I thought about it, I was like, yeah, totally. Never mind. He kind of looks like him a little bit. And so that was really the biggest thing. I thought, I want to be a part of that project. I think I also knew Malkovich was playing the judge. And I didn't know if I would have any scenes with Malkovich when I first heard about it, but I thought, if Malkovich is a part of the project, And then the whole experience was just even more rich than I thought it would be. The exciting thing about playing a real person, or a character based on a real person who's discussing real events, is that it, to me at least, gives it such an extra amount of weight that needs not your invention. You don't have to bring that to it. All you have to do is accept it as the truth that it is. And that was extremely rewarding for me, to get to go through those court scenes, like the longer portions describing what he had done and describing what a vile human being he was for having done them. I don't know how to say it other than it felt good to get to say it. The more gruesome details about the Bundy case are harrowing to read, and I wouldn't read it for enjoyment's sake. That being said, because I did play a character who was so anti that, who was trying to convict him, I don't know how else to say it, but I felt pretty cleansed by the end of it. I was like, I've done everything I can. If you won't throw him behind bars, well, at least I tried. I think that kind of, I felt very clean when I was done with it. I can't speak for Zach, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, this case is so much more than a double murder.
Don't let his opening statement face.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Show no emotion
this
at all.
case is about catching a monster.
You know what my talent is? I know in the first 30 seconds if somebody's got what it takes to be a star. And you, believe it or not, you got it. You got picture potential.
Hollywood came about, well, from the mind of Ryan Murphy, and he came to me while we were shooting Boys in the Band, actually, because he's a producer on that. Knocked on my trailer one day and started talking about this project and this character. And I remember going home and talking to Todd about it, and he was like, well, you're gonna do it. You love working with Ryan. I was like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm gonna do it. And this is before I'd even read it. But the part of Henry Wilson excited me tremendously. To play this kind of vile, blustering at times, dealing with the mafia. I mean, I was just like, what in the hell? It was everything about acting, or a lot of things about acting, that I think most actors love, which is like, you get to play these outlandish scenes, comedy, drama, cringeworthy things. But again, it was a real person, and so I had not only the responsibility, but I had with the material of his life, the knowledge of how to ground him and make him real, or I felt that I did. And keeping those two things going at the same time, this vile, could be a caricature, but trying to keep him as real as possible, it was really the perfect challenge. And I loved every second of it, even the hours in the makeup chair. I think the question of what does Ryan see in me as an actor is something that a lot of actors probably at different levels ask themselves or wonder, even if not quite in those words or quite consciously. But it's always, for me at least, and I think a lot of people, it's always a positive, and it's always very freeing, and it's always a confidence booster. He has this almost magical way of seeing aspects that you could bring to something that not only nobody else sees, but you yourself sometimes don't. And so I knew that, and I felt that. And I felt it as soon as I started reading it, even as vile and horrible as it was. Because Ryan had said that I could play this part, I believed that I could. And that was really all the invitation I needed to jump on board with both feet.
You're fired. Let's go.
This old college friend of mine is in town, and he's stopping by for a fast drink on his way to dinner somewhere, but he's straight, so straight.
If he's the one I met, he's about as straight as the yellow brick road.
No, you met Justin Stewart. It is not that I care what he would think of me, really. It's just, he's not ready for it. No, and he never will be.
The Boys in the Band was a unique and possibly a once-in-a-career experience for a couple of reasons. The first was that it was so many gay men all involved. I mean, the director, the producer, the writer, every single actor in it. And when I first knew that the whole cast was going to be out gay actors, I thought, that's great. I will say, just at a personal level, the experience when we did the play on Broadway was unlike anything I'd ever been a part of before, partly because of the fact that it was just a group of gay guys together working on this piece. And I didn't realize that was something I had missed out on. And that most people miss out on, because again, the rarity of having that situation is it's rare for everybody, not just me. But it was very impactful to me, and it was a very familial, fraternal language being spoken that I didn't realize I could speak, or that so many other people spoke. And I don't even know how to define that, but it was unique in that way. The second part that was, I don't know that I'll ever repeat this in my career, was having done a full Broadway run of material before you get in front of the camera with it. Well, normally you barely get to rehearse anything in front of the camera. Even if they set aside time for rehearsal, it's still much more limited than in a theater situation. Matt Bomer was the one who said at one point during it, in the middle of filming, he was like, okay, I've decided I never want to do any movie that I haven't done a full Broadway run of beforehand. And I thought, it's so true, because there were so many questions that didn't need to be asked, which allowed for so many other questions that you wouldn't have gotten to be asked in the process. And just his understanding of the material and having lived with these characters for so long, if you were willing to play, which I think all of us were, you just got to travel to deeper and more substantial places than I think I had ever been to before on a movie set. Like I say, it may have been a once-in-a-career type experience. I hope not. But by the same token, I enjoyed it so much that I don't mind if it's the only one like that, because it's very special to me. And so maybe I don't want another one like that. I'll have to find something else wonderful. I think what excites me most is, God willing for a long life on my part, but that I'm in for surprises still. I feel like I'm in a place in my career that feels young again in a weird way, if that makes any sense. Like, all I can do is keep moving along and keep trying and doing the things that my heart is called to do. And so that excites me. It feels like a low-key Christmas morning. If I told my younger self that I would be doing a career retrospective, he would not have known what to make of that, because what career and what are you talking about? And the idea that I'll add up and do things that somebody will care to go over, besides my mother, that would have surprised me.